We are live for the first time in over a month. And to start this one off, I want to talk about some sad news and what may be sad news week one if the Niners can't get it done against the Rams. The offseason is in full swing, but the drama continues. The offseason is in full swing. We are in the dead period of the Niners offseason. It's supposed to be dead period, but it seems like every single year we have drama. Let me just quickly check my mic. I believe it's working. Hold on. Yeah, it's working. Anyway, every single year we have drama. I mean, going back to 2021 with Jimmy Garoppolo, we always had something that we were talking about. Last year it was about Brandon Aiyuk. The year before that, it was about the Brandon Aiyuk holdout. This year, it seems to be about Brandon Aiyuk. And then, of course, we had the tragic passing of Justin Smith, who I'll talk about him in a minute. We had the Myles Garrett trade that happened 2 weeks ago now. And I wanted to get in to the 49ers week one matchup because why not? It's June. Why not talk about week one against the Rams? And I think the Myles Garrett, I think that's kind of a subject that has already been talked about quite a bit when he first initially got traded to the Rams. And really quickly, so I'm doing this summer internship with this summer league baseball team broadcasting games. And so I'm going to post some interviews that I've done post game because I do interviews post game to the players, and I want to post some of those interviews on my channel. So stay tuned for that. I've never been a huge fan of baseball, but that was the opportunity that I presented itself. And so I decided, let's go to a sport that I really have never watched my entire life and call a sport there. So I'm calling games there. I'm trying to get a interview released that I did with one of the players that plays at Texas A&M Victoria. He's in the transfer portal right now. He's a really good hitter for them. I'm trying to get an interview released with that, except they are being annoying about it. But yeah, let's talk about Myles Garrett and the Niners. And I want to be going live more on this channel because if there's anything I love talking, it's football, just anything football. So let's talk about Myles Garrett here. And then, we've got Kalen Black. I want to quickly touch on him. We've got Aldon Smith, of course. And then we've got Brandon Aiyuk. So let's start off with Myles Garrett to the Rams week one matchup. And what this will expose on the Niners. First off, how did the 49ers always used to keep Aaron Donald at bay? Now, Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald might actually come back. That's the craziest part. Aaron Donald might actually come back to play for the Rams this season, which would be crazy. But he might actually do that. There have been rumors. I'm sure everyone has seen that. There have been rumors that actually might actually happen. But let's say that Aaron Donald doesn't come back and play. How the Niners have tried to, and there is really no stopping Myles Garrett, but how the Niners have tried to stop Myles Garrett in the past is with George Kittle chipping on whatever side Myles Garrett is on. Well, there's a good chance that George Kittle does not get back for that week one game. So that's one. The Niners don't have a tight end, won't potentially have Kittle. Therefore, it's going to be a lot of Myles Garrett one-on-one versus Colton McKivitz versus an old Trent Williams. And so that's going to expose one thing. And it's also going to expose another thing. And Braden Fisk, guys like Braden Fisk. Let's look at their roster. Guys like Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Byron Young are going to have one-on-one matchups out the yazoo. When a guard slides over to help with Garrett, you're going to have a lot of times a defensive tackle either rushing up the middle unblocked. I mean, we saw that when the Chiefs played the Niners in the Super Bowl and they were trying to account for Chris Jones. You're going to see a lot of, okay, the guard is sliding over to help with Myles Garrett, and they run a stunt in the middle or a twist or whatever, and then you're going to have Braden Fisk running straight up the middle for a free sack. Or you're going to have Braden Fisk, Poona Ford, Kobe Turner, whatever, one-on-one on the outside or inside, whatever it is. So that's going to wreak havoc. And so with guards one-on-one, let's say with Braden Fisk, you're going to need a really good guard. So who are the 49ers going to throw out their week 1 at guard? Just guess. Just guess. They're going to throw out the man, the myth, the legend right here. They're going to throw out, God forbid, Connor Colby at left guard, one-on-one with Braden Fisk. How do you think that's going to end? And so I was playing with my brother Madden today, and I was playing with the Seahawks. And of course, the Seattle Seahawks on their roster, I have it pulled up here. They have Jake Sundell, they have Gray Zabel, they have Charles Cross. They have a top 5 offensive line. And I was like, now Madden isn't everything, but I'm playing with them on Madden, and their offensive line is so good. I'm able to make play actions, perfect reads. If you're going, and this is why I'm just talking about how Myles Garrett joining the Rams is even going to further expose the 49ers offensive line. But the Seahawks, if you're looking at a team like the Niners compared to the Seahawks are built to stop a Myles Garrett because they have a good offensive line that can go one-on-one with a lot of the players on the Rams. The 49ers are not built to go one-on-one with Braden Fisk. When they have to double or chip Myles Garrett and Braden Fisk is one-on-one with Jake Brendel or Connor Colby, that's a win from Braden Fisk easily every day. But I was playing today with the Seahawks and realizing, wow, they have a really good offensive line. And the Niners, the reason why we're going to see this Myles Garrett be such a problem, not only is because he's just Myles Garrett, but the reason why we're going to see Braden Fisk getting home and Turner getting home, it's because they have neglected the offensive line for years. And finally, they're going to, Seahawks have had a very good defensive line. Rams have had a very good defensive line. Rams before this had, that, why am I forgetting his name that went to the Browns in exchange for that Myles Garrett trade? But it's not like both teams didn't have a good defensive line. But now the Niners are going to have to face Myles Garrett twice a year, a different level of pass rusher that we haven't seen in this division. And we are going to be completely exposed every single time we play them. And it just will completely expose the 49ers' complete lack to truly address this offensive line. And I don't think Carver Willis is going to be the guard that we drafted out of Washington in the 4th round. I don't think Carver Willis is going to be the answer day one. He might have to develop into that role, into the center/guard position. But if you thought the Niners' offensive line was bad in the previous years, it's going to get even more exposed because of Myles Garrett. So, and then, okay, I'll move on. But this is the kind of the topic of today, is breaking down this week 1 matchup. And I'll be back on Wednesday to break it down even more. And I want to get a guest on, hopefully 49ers First Takes. Aaron's great. But let's just even, here's the one thing that I think could break the 49ers way early is continuity. I mean, the 49ers are bringing back a lot of the same guys, and not on the offensive side for the Rams, but on the defensive side for the Rams. They have a lot of new guys. And here's the thing, defense is really important continuity, because if you have a lot of new guys on the defense, especially, you're going to have miscommunications early. And because this is a week 1 game, the Niners are going to see miscommunication. The Rams might have miscommunication early. Now, it's going to take them 5 to 6 weeks for these guys to get used to playing with each other. And I'm talking about Trent McDuffie, the new corner we had, Jalen Watson, they picked up in free agents or traded for, Jalen Watson, the new Chiefs corner that they picked up in free agency, Cam Curl, Cameron Kitchens, all are new guys to this, new additions to this roster. And so you might see a play or two go awry from the Rams have a miscommunication here because they have a very new defense, especially in that secondary. And so that could break the Niners' way, is just how new this Rams defense is, especially in that first half. You could see, okay, the Niners are kind of gaining a little bit of ground on this Rams defense. Another thing you could see here, and the Niners, a lot of their roster is intact from last year. Another thing that the Rams could see go against them early is we saw that Alaric Jackson, the left tackle, got taken into custody. And there's a good chance that he might not even play week 1. We'll see. But there's a good chance that Alaric Jackson, he got taken into custody with domestic battery abuse. And that whole story is so weird because apparently he bit his girlfriend's phone in an altercation. He grabbed the phone and bit it. Anyway, really weird. What these football players, that's a whole nother story for another day. And I'm going to get to Brandon Aiyuk, but what these football players do sometimes just amazes me. But Alaric Jackson might not be there, the left tackle. And then they're going to have to rely on David Quessenberry, potentially week 1, who the last time he started a full season was for Tennessee. He started 17 games at right tackle. He started 3 games, David Quessenberry, for Buffalo in 2022, 4 for Minnesota in 2023, and then he played 18 snaps last year for the Rams. So, and a left tackle's relationship with the quarterback and chemistry with the quarterback is very important. So the one thing, there's 2 things that the could break the 49ers way early. The continuity of that very new Rams defense. I mean, they have a lot of, like I said earlier, they have a lot of returning defensive players that have never played together before. So you might see some miscommunication. And then that left tackle position might not be, David Quessenberry might be starting for them week 1, which is an oh no for the Rams week 1. But other than that, I mean, if you go roster for roster with this team, it's like I said, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. I mean, they just have a better wide receiving core. We already know that. They have better tight ends. George Kittle, very strong possibility that he doesn't appear in that week 1 game. I mean, I wouldn't even consider putting him on the field. If you see Dre Greenlaw's Achilles tear took him half a season to even see the field before he recovered from that. So George Kittle, if the Niners are smart, doesn't see the field until October. So you're talking about the Niners without George Kittle in week 1. That's a whole nother problem in itself. Because, I mean, Jake Tonjes is not half the blocker George Kittle is. And then if you're looking at the defensive line, I mean, you've got Kobe Turner, Poona Ford, Braden Fisk, Byron Young, Myles Garrett. I mean, those are all like potential Pro Bowlers. They picked up Tim Keenan, a prospect out of Alabama that I really liked, a run stuffer, Tim Keenan, versus the Niners offensive line of old Trent Williams, Robert Jones or Connor Colby, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, and Colton McKivitz. So, yeah, how do you think that one's going to go? I mean, hey, maybe, like I said, maybe it'll break the Niners' way. I think it'll be a lot closer than we think, but man, that is going to be a tough one to start out. All right, so we've talked about for 13 minutes about the Niners versus Rams and Myles Garrett. Well, actually, okay. One other thing I want to bring up. How do the Seahawks match up against the 49ers? Because I think the Seahawks are going to be better, but here's a major question mark that we're not seeing with the Seahawks. They replaced Kenneth Walker with Jadarian Price, who talented at Notre Dame, but Jadarian Price never got the full workload at running back. And they're going to, early in the season, going to be relying on him to be the workhorse at running back, because behind Jadarian Price, Zach Charbonnet won't be there week 1. Behind Jadarian Price is George Holani and Emmanuel Wilson. So that's a big thing this season for the Seahawks. And then on top of the fact, the Seahawks lost a lot of their cornerbacks. I mean, right now, their left cornerback, starting at the left side for their cornerbacks, is Devin Witherspoon. We all know his past. He got replaced by the Rams because he just isn't fitting the bill. Ty Okada is going to be their strong safety. Their other cornerback is going to be Josh Jobe, who I don't think he started for them. I think he started in the slot for them last year. So we already know that they lost a big part of their secondary, the Seahawks. So the Seahawks could be suffering from a bigger Super Bowl hangover than we think they will. And honestly, Niners and Seahawks are closer than we think they are, especially with the new Seattle offensive play caller. There's really 2 big things, or 3 big things on the Seahawks. And when we're talking, this is all in the greater, I'm really trying to tie this all into where the 49ers stand in the NFC West. There's really 3 big questions with the Seahawks. Jadarian Price, how does he handle a full workload? Because as a day 1 back, I think he's going to do really well, but how does he handle a full workload? I mean, we already mentioned his backups not showing much promise. How does he handle a full workload? How does the new offensive coordinator, Fleury, tight ends coach for the Niners, how does he do in year 1 as will be his first time ever calling plays? So maybe it'll take him a couple of weeks to really sharpen his play calling. And then how does the revamped Seahawks secondary do? I mean, the Seahawks in the first round decided to draft a running back instead of addressing their secondary. And they really, I mean, they lost a lot of members of their secondary. And currently, right now, starting at one of their cornerback positions is Devin Witherspoon. Niners know him well. So I don't know. I think the Niners are either going to be second, I mean, clearly behind the Rams, but we could even see a Niners week 1 win if everything breaks their way, as I mentioned before. But Seattle might be a little bit closer to the Niners than we think. All right, I spent way too much on this topic. So let's go to the next one. We'll talk about Kalen Black. We'll talk about Brandon Aiyuk. But quick kind of, I don't know, echo to Aldon Smith. Aldon Smith, it's crazy to think this, but he was really on the Niners when I was just becoming a fan. Like, I was a fan since 2011, 2012 when I was 5 years old, but I didn't really start getting used to or getting familiar with all the Niners players till like 2016. So the Aldon Smith years and from 2011 to 2014 were really not the years that I was really keeping up with him. But the 2012 Super Bowl team, 2012, 2013 Super Bowl team, he was just elite. I mean, he had 17 sacks. Um, and he really was like my first introduction to the 49ers football, Aldon Smith. Even though I didn't really know his stats or because I was just too young to keep up with him. But from what we've heard, you know, the day that he died, he was giving out pizza to homeless people. Um, he was working roofing or construction in Texas. And shout out I believe it was the Chronicle who put out this kind of a background on where Aldon Smith was in life. He had struggled with drug addiction over the years, which is nothing to take lightly. I've even seen this, mental health, drug addiction. So a guy like Aldon Smith could have been a defensive end that we would have been naming the name of for 10 plus years if, he didn't struggle with mental health issues. So the death of Aldon Smith comes with a heaviness because a guy who had so much potential. And then also, if you read about what he was doing the day he died, that's just really sad. And we don't know the cause of death yet. It could have been a heart attack. The whole story, you guys know it probably already if you're listening to this podcast, but somber mood that went over the Niners community yesterday when we learned of the death. And I mean, condolences to his family. And he was kind of the earliest memories of the Niners that I have. I was 6 years old when I watched them in the Super Bowl, or not even. And I remember when they lost that Super Bowl, I asked my dad, will the Niners ever be back to the Super Bowl? So very sad, very tragic, and condolences to his family. And really, it's just kind of a lesson to us all. So, yes. And I might talk about it more on Wednesday when I'm going to try to get a guest on. Otherwise, I'll probably be going live Wednesday. I want to be doing these shows a lot more. But we'll talk about Brandon Aiyuk last because I really don't have a lot to say on him. I'm kind of just done with it as a Niners fan. Kalen Black. I drafted this guy on Dynasty. And here's the occurrence and the thought. I'm going to be probably done with this show at 30 minutes. I need to go to bed. I have work tomorrow. But here's the occurrence and thought that I started having while thinking about this today. Kyle Shanahan, while he has missed on running backs, and I was very pessimistic about the fit in my last live show that I did a month and a half ago, I was very pessimistic because I was like, why would you draft a running back this high in the draft when this is historically a bad running back draft? I mean, the second best running back in this draft was Jadarian Price, who didn't even have a full workload as a running back, who had a smaller sample size than one would like in college. That was the second best running back in this draft, Jadarian Price. Guys like Nick Singleton in this draft were up there on the board, and Nick Singleton had huge question marks, the running back out of Penn State. Mike Washington, the running back out of Arkansas, who ended up going to the Raiders, is probably going to be a career backup. But those were the running backs that we were dealing with. This was an historically bad running back draft. But then you look at it from the side of Kyle Shanahan. he knows what he's doing, and the scouts know what they're doing. You have to, at some point, have some trust in this Niners front office. I'm not saying I have a lot of trust because I don't. But at some point, you have to realize in an historically bad draft, the Niners were willing to go up and draft. This was the third running back taken off the board. Second, if you don't count Jeremiah Love. The Niners were willing to go up in an historically bad draft, trade up, and get Kalen Black, meaning that they saw so much in him that they were willing to not only take a huge third round reach on this guy because he was projected to be in the 6th round, but also make him the 3rd overall running back drafted, which means Kyle Shanahan has a lot of trust, and which means this guy's going to get a crack and a shot at it early on, really early on. We're going to see him as early as week 1. And if you see all the reports out of OTAs, it's like this guy is the most powerful, the most aggressive, violent running back on the field. And he was day after day in OTAs a couple of weeks ago. And so what this screams to me is, yes, it was an historic reach. Yes, the Niners have missed on running backs before, but they also haven't missed on some running backs. Elijah Mitchell, they didn't miss on him. Jordan Mason, they didn't miss on him. At some point, you have to realize and look at the other lens of like, Kyle Shanahan really, really must like this guy if he's willing to stake part of his reputation on it, and if he's willing to draft this guy, go up, draft this guy, the number 3 running back. And you see him in his college tape, and it's like, not only did he have 1,000 yards rushing, splitting carries with another running back. That's another thing. He had 1,000 yards rushing while splitting carries with another running back. He runs hard. He's super aggressive. He reminds me of a JaMycal Hasty. Now, true 49ers fans would know because JaMycal Hasty was on the Niners from like 2020 to 2021. And he was this small scat back who was really violent and averaged 5 yards per carry. But the Niners could never lean on him because he was pretty small, JaMycal Hasty. But this is the style of run, the style of running back, and the style, just the violence reminds me of a JaMycal Hasty. And if he can even be, I definitely, he has way more production and way more tools than a JaMycal Hasty had. So if JaMycal Hasty was a formidable running back on this roster for a couple years, then Kalen Black, I think, will be a lot better than that. And I mean, this is super optimistic, but Jahmyr Gibbs, he's not going to, maybe not, doesn't have the ceiling to be a workhorse running back, but Jahmyr Gibbs isn't either. Jahmyr Gibbs has been splitting carries his entire career. And Jahmyr Gibbs has the running style that Kalen Black does. Now, I'm not saying Kalen Black is Jahmyr Gibbs, but every single time this guy hits the hole, I mean, it's like a freight train coming through. And that's something, if you watch the 49ers busts, running back busts that they've had under Kyle Shanahan, if you watch Terrion Davis-Price, if you watched Trey Sermon, those runners were not the level, didn't run with the level of aggression that Kalen Black runs with. And so I'm quite confident that this is going to be the number 1 rookie in this year's Niners draft after year 1. Because a lot of these guys were drafted for the future. What's his name? Carver Willis, Carver Willis was drafted for the future. He's going to be kind of a developmental pick. Of course, Dejon Stribling was drafted for the future, even though he might start very quickly if injuries persist. Ephesians Prysock was drafted for the future. Jaden Duggar was drafted for the future. So of all the rookies on this team, Kalen Black has the best chance to shine and is already been gathering rave reviews from Niners sports writers that have covered the team. So look for him. And I changed my mind on this draft pick because when it first happened, I was like, what the heck? But that's really what it is being a fan. It's these being a fan is very impulsive. Oh, I don't like that pick. Or, oh, I don't think they should have drafted this guy. And, it's never looking at the other side of things, looking at the other side of the coin. And I kind of had to look at the lens of it from a Kyle Shanahan point of view. All right. Last topic of the day before we get out of here. Like I said, I might be going live with a guest on Wednesday. I want to do this consistently. If you haven't already, I'm going to be posting shorts on my YouTube of I'm actually broadcasting for a summer league baseball team. It's a college league. And I broadcast for them. Now the network that I broadcast on is money and it's expensive. So, but I do post-game interviews. So I'll be posting some of those interviews that I've already done. And that's kind of what I'm doing for the summer. That's keeping me very busy. And it was an opportunity. I'd much rather be covering football because baseball is not, it really doesn't get interesting until the 7th inning. And then also I had never covered baseball before ever, but it was an opportunity, like I said. And I took it. So let's talk about Brandon Aiyuk. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm going to get you guys out of here, but Brandon Aiyuk has been making posts almost daily in the last week and a half. Some of those posts saying, come and get this belt. The 49ers, he speaks in riddles, and I'm sure anyone watching this has already seen it. I really don't need to explain much, but the 49ers are running from the belt is essentially what he's saying. Female dogs is what he called them. And here's the thing. Here's the stance that I have on it. Yes, the 49ers might have wronged you by taking away your guarantees. And I'm not going to really read into this situation too much because, content creators like Grant Cohn, it's like, well, what if there was something that happened behind the scenes? As a podcaster, I wouldn't even say journalist because I'm not a journalist, but as an aspiring journalist, as a podcaster, we are told to look at the facts that present us. Facts. Brandon Aiyuk didn't show up to his rehab for the 49ers in the summer after he got injured. So that would have been 2025. Summer of 2025. So would that have been last year? Anyway, didn't show up for his rehab meetings. The Niners take away his guarantees. And they obviously instantly regretted the contract that they gave him. And that is their fault. They should not have given him that contract. They should have traded him. This will go down as one of the many Kyle Shanahan or one of the biggest Kyle Shanahan mistakes in his tenure here. If Kyle Shanahan ever gets fired, this will be a reason as he walks into the office. The number one reason on the chalkboard. Now, I don't think he's getting fired, but the number one reason on the chalkboard will be the botching of the Brandon Aiyuk situation. And that is well documented. It's been documented that the Niners were on the phone to the Steelers ready to trade him. And Kyle Shanahan runs in there and says, no, I need this guy. And honestly, at the peak of his career, he was a top 10 wide receiver. He was truly, truly really good. He had a top 5 season. He was a top 10 receiver at least at the peak of his career. But here's the thing. So maybe they did him dirty in the negotiation process. They did him dirty by taking away his guarantees. But here's the thing. There were also other controversies, like him wearing the wrong colored shorts at the 49ers practice. They're all supposed to wear black. He showed up in red, trying to be above the team. And I've played organized sports my entire life. I run now. When you are above the team, and also in the past, what's his name? Devondre Campbell, the linebacker that we had 2 years ago. He wasn't getting the playing time, and so he walked off of the field. And he was cut by the Niners like the next day. Or maybe it was that season they kind of left him on the roster, but he never saw the field again. When you are above the team and you make yourself bigger than the team, then I don't have sympathy for you. I really don't. He didn't show up to his rehab. The Niners took away his guaranteed. Now he's not showing up he didn't show up to OTAs, whatever. I don't have sympathy for you if you quit on the team. And the Niners have shown, yes, we'll give players and we'll let players bully us, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, when it comes to contract negotiations. We'll hand out contract negotiations. But one thing you can never do is walk out on the team. And they feel like he walked out on the team. And so that is kind of, and that's just sports. I mean, that's just any organized team sport. I played basketball for the longest time in high school. Actually, as far as team sports, I'm thinking basketball was the only team sport because I run now, but that's not really a team sport. But anyway, any team sport, it's just basic knowledge. It's like, yes, we can have these negotiations, but outside on the football field, I'm never going to make it bigger. I'm never going to make that a problem. I'm never going to show that to my teammates. And he just was becoming a locker room cancer. And I think for the health of the locker room, the Niners just now, and also all he had to do was show up to OTAs that the Niners had a couple weeks ago. And the Niners would have been forced to give him back his guarantees that they took away from him. So now their two options are, of course, cut him or keep him on the roster until his contract expires until his contract expires in 2027. I think they're going to keep him on the roster. I really do. He's not showing up to the team. The team knows it's ridiculous. He quit on the team. George Kittle, Fred Warner have already expressed that their kind of frustrations with him when they've been asked about it. And I don't think this may become a locker room cancer, but I think that this team is pretty much in agreement. If you quit on the team, we don't have words for you. And so, and that's another thing. It's like, this was brought up on another podcast. It's like, if you're another team looking in, do you really want to trade or cut or, pick up Brandon Aiyuk when he's eventually cut? No, a guy who you don't even know if he's fully recovered from that ACL. He hasn't played football since that freak ACL injury. ACL, MCL, he tore all the ligaments in his knee. I mean, if you go back and watch that play, it's disgusting kind of to watch. So he hasn't played since then. He clearly is a locker room distraction. If you're another team, do you really want to bring that in? So his career may very well be over. If at the very least, he's not going to be the same person he was, because no player takes 2 years off of football. This will be his second year, and I don't think he's playing this year. Takes 2 years off of football and comes back and is the same person. I mean, it's just not going to be the same. So that's what I have on Brandon Aiyuk. I think it's kind of funny. I find it almost comical of all this stuff he's been posting on social media. It may be CTE, but I think there's a very high chance that it's him just trying to rile the Niners up into cutting him, because he knows that's kind of the last card that he has left to play. But if the Niners cut Brandon Aiyuk, they're going to be on the hook for all this dead cap money. So their best thing is to just put him on a list, which is did not report to practice because he hasn't been reporting. And in your contract, you have stipulations. If you don't show up to these mandatory practices, they can void all your guarantees, which is like $25 million for Brandon Aiyuk. So again, I fault the Niners for giving him the contract in the first place. I fault Kyle Shanahan for intervening. They could have gotten a first-round pick. What at the time the Steelers were reportedly offering was Calvin Austin, the receiver. He's not that great, but Calvin Austin, the receiver, and a first-round pick. They could have gotten that first-round pick and either spent it. I mean, that was going into the 2024 season, the season we went 6-11. The Niners could have spent that, pick that the Steelers were offering, the 21st overall pick, and they could have drafted, what were some of our needs in 2024? They could have drafted a defensive lineman, a cornerback, whatever. They didn't even have to address wide receiver theoretically if they would have gotten that Steelers pick in 2020 for the 2025 season. But they could have drafted Michael. They could have had, let's say, so they trade him to the Steelers in 2024. So that would have been a 2025 first round for a 2025 first round draft pick. That was the year we got Michael Williams. That was also the year that Nick Emanwari got drafted in the second round for the Seattle Seahawks. We could have, with the 21st pick that the Steelers gave us in the Brandon Aiyuk trade, we could have drafted Michael and Nick Emanwari and had just a dramatically better defense. But, that's all hindsight. And that's not something that will ever happen. But that was one of the, if not, that's up there. This mistake of signing him to that contract is up there with the Trey Lance 3 first-round picks trade of. And I actually want to do a show on this later. Is another show, maybe next show, hopefully with a guest, will be ranking the Niners' biggest mistakes. And then to balance it out, we'll do ranking the Niners' biggest accomplishments under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. But yeah, that's up there with the Trey Lance. What's another really big mistake that I can think of that the Niners have done in the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era? I mean, there's a multiple, but drafting Solomon Thomas ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Christian McCaffrey in a litany. I mean, that draft class was so loaded, and they drafted like the one bust that they could. That was the first year of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. What's another mistake? I mean, I could name a lot drafting mistakes wise. As far as contracts go, what's a bad? I mean, letting DeForest Buckner go and re-signing Eric Armstead, and then DeForest Buckner goes on to have like just 4 years where he was just one of the best defensive tackles in the league, just dominant. That would be up there. Let's see. Re-signing the whole quarterback situation before Brock Purdy came along was horrible. I mean, the whole Jimmy Garoppolo drama. And then of course, Trey Lance, like I said before. I think Jimmy Garoppolo mistake and Trey Lance have to kind of be in separate mistakes that they've made, keeping Jimmy Garoppolo around for as long as they did. I'd say another mistake is not pursuing Matthew Stafford. We knew in 2021 when the Rams traded for Matthew Stafford, the Niners were also in the conversations, and the Lions were apparently priced the Niners out. And then the Rams swooped in and got Matthew Stafford. But honestly, I would have pursued Matthew Stafford and offered more than the Rams did. So not pursuing Matthew Stafford aggressively enough, because in hindsight, like in 2021, we had a really talented roster. And even if we had to give up the picks that we needed to for Matthew Stafford, we probably would have won the Super Bowl the next year instead of the Rams, because we were in the NFC Championship the next year, in the first year of Matthew Stafford versus the Rams. We were in that NFC Championship. And Matthew Stafford was the one defeating us, and then they go on to win the Super Bowl, and the rest is history. But that's a long rant. But I would say that was one really big mistake, is not getting Matthew Stafford. Anyway, I digress, guys. It's really late here on the East Coast. I'll let you guys go. Watch the clips chopped up from this show. It's been a great show, and a very great show. Donald Trump. Sorry, his impersonations are just great. But it's been a great show. Watch for some of the interviews that I'm going to post on my Summer League baseball job that I've been doing. And yeah, guys, I'll catch you probably on Wednesday. I'm going to be streaming a lot more.